My name is Claudia Morales. I'm with the music division, and I'm so excited to welcome to our wonderful library Ricardo Gallardo, artistic director of Tambuco Percussion Ensemble. Welcome, Ricardo.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. Thank
The
you.
fact that we are here tonight is an act of faith. This is 6 years in the making. Tonight's performance was scheduled before the pandemic, so it was canceled there, and we pivot online at that time, so we have the video online if you want to see it. And then we rescheduled it, and then it was postponed for the government shutdown. And then this was the third try, and we got this close to postpone it because of the weather. So really, we are here, and I'm so glad that you're here too. So welcome, and enjoy the performance tonight.
Thank you.
So Ricardo, we're here.
Yes, finally. You have no idea of how happy we are to be here, face by face.
Yes.
Despite every possible situation, against all odds, and some other not so odds. But yes.
So Tambuco, with 32 years since
That's right.
information, 12 albums, 4 Grammy and Latin Grammy nominations.
Yeah. Well, right now it's 5 because
5.
we added one more, and we will know in 3 days the first of.
Congratulations. That's amazing. So, yes, well deserved.
Thank you.
So Tambuco had an extraordinary career in these 32 plus years. Can you take us back to the beginnings of the ensemble, and what were you responding artistically at that moment?
It's quite a story because I think that is a project of life. You know, I've known 2 out of my 3 colleagues in Tambuco. I've known them since I was 17 years old, you know. So that was even some years before Tambuco that we were playing together. It all started because we all were students at the University of Mexico, and we loved to play chamber music, you know. So we were making music already before Tambuco. Then I left for some years to keep on studying. First I went to Canada and then the UK in London, but I kept always coming back and making music with my friends, you know. And we had this strong desire to form a quartet and carry on what made us happy, you know, from the beginning. And that was the story of Tambuco. Sorry, the weather. Thank you. So much. Thank you. This is not water, don't be misled. This is the purest mezcal you could find. No, cheers. No, just kidding, just kidding.
He wishes.
Just kidding. So it was a natural story, and I think that what makes Tambuco very unique is that we also remain great friends. After all these years, 32 years, we all tell the same jokes over and over, and the worst is that we still laugh at them as the first time, you know. And I think that as a percussionist, you have to develop a lot of sense of humor, because you hit things for a living, you know, and that releases all your tension. I really recommend it, you know. You should try percussion, and then that makes us it brings us a great disposition to welcome smiles and music, because this work is very hard. So you might as well do it with the best of you, despite everything, you know. Yeah. And I think those are unique features.
How has the artistic vision evolved in these 32 years?
Um, I am happy to say that many of the goals that we set for ourselves have not changed. And after so many years, they keep being the same. And it's very clear. One of the magic words of Tambuco is collaboration. I strongly believe that there's no single act of the human being that has not been collective. Even the loneliest writer that goes to a hidden cave in the middle of the desert, he needs someone else to read what he wrote in order for this process to make sense. We need always of each other. So this word, collaboration, has been the spark plug to create many wonderful projects, collaboration with composers, working closely with them, and as a result of this work, the premiere of their pieces in concerts, working closely with other musical institutions such as orchestras, chamber orchestras, or colleagues instrumentalists of many other instruments, or the close collaboration with presenters and venues in order to design and develop ideas that we can show in festivals, in concert halls, and all of that, and document all of that in recordings that we have, and now videos, for instance, and that has not changed. The constant learning, as you will see, percussion instruments are a huge family of instruments that come from many cultures, many corners in the world. And there's one feature that you will find very interesting compared to other classical musicians, where a violinist, for instance, needs to learn his technique and the classical Western technique, but he never goes to see how other violins or fiddles are being played in other cultures. And us as percussionists, we need to learn instruments that come from Asia, come from Africa, or the Americas. And the best way to learn these instruments is oral tradition, you know. And when you do this, something changes. I mean, we have a mind that is very different from the concert pianist or any other concert instrument, because in that process of learning these traditional techniques, you also learn the context in which they developed parts of the culture, and that affects you, and that affects you in the way, or that affects us in the way we play and we present our interpretations in concert.
As you said, collaboration is at the core of Tambuco.
Yes.
Since the very beginning. How do you create the balance about executing the composer's idea and being true to your values and principles as an ensemble?
I think that they complement. I don't think that we have encountered a situation in which we would have to compromise who we are, because they are intrinsically attached. Most of the composers that write for Tambuco, they know us as performers. So they know our strengths and they know our limits, you know. And when they write for us, they have each one's personality in mind, you know. So we played this music that is tailor-made for us. Of course, we play also the same, the mainstream repertoire, which is fantastic to play. Xenakis, John Cage, all these big names of contemporary music for percussion. But what defines us is this tailor-made music.
Speaking of that, tonight's program includes a piece from Diego Vega,
Yes.
Totakataka.
Yes.
Am I saying it right?
Yes.
Totakataka.
Yes. It's a game of words because of the piece is very toccata, like, displays a lot of virtuosism. But, and also the word attacca, which the term in classical music is go right away into either the next movement or something that is attacca means go right into the music immediately. So he plays with this toccata and attacca, and he named the piece Totakataka, which is also very onomatopoeic, Yeah.
And this is the first composition that he wrote for percussion,
Right.
right? And you premiered last year in Colombia, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
And so in thinking about his composition process, how did he wanted to, what idea did he had in mind to write this piece for Tambuco?
Well, the story of this piece comes back from another collaboration. There's a wonderful dance company in Colombia called El Colegio del Cuerpo, College of the Body. And we have played with them, collaborating in pieces and choreographies and composers. The first collaboration with them was music written by Mexican composer who lives in New York, Samuel Seaman. He teaches at Juilliard. And it was a piece about the peace, the peace in Colombia, the process of peace. And and it was very, very successful because it was a very, the whole subject of peace in Colombia is something that has been long awaited because the situations that they have. And so it was a very emotional piece. And after that, we wanted to develop another project with the music of Diego Vega. Unluckily, this project, it was too big and it was too difficult to finance a project of such a size. And Diego had thought of having composition for symphony orchestra and having rhythmic interludes with Tambuco. That couldn't, that was not possible to realize. And he said, well, too bad, but I have to write a piece for you. And I already wrote half of the material which he used to compose Totakataka. Yes. And this is actually the second time that it's going to be played. So it's the North American premiere.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because we traveled first to Bogota, we did the piece there, and now we are presenting it here. And next week will be played in Madrid, in Spain.
Tonight's program also features your arrangement of the second movement of Ravel's string quartet.
That's right, yeah.
What intrigued you about the piece that you thought, I can do the arrangement for marimbas and bring that sound into a marimba quartet?
Yes, well, first of all, Ravel is like, and second, he only wrote one string quartet in his whole life. As a student, actually, and he dedicated this piece to his teacher, Gabriel Fauré. And the second movement, even if it says string quartet, don't believe Ravel. It's written for marimbas, I swear. Yes, it's so percussive, it's a movement so rhythmic, and starts with a pizzicati, without the bow, just the finger. So it's very, very percussive. And I said, we have to try this because it's beautiful music, and for the transcription, I barely touched some things because you could read right from the string parts most of the music, because it's so rhythmic and I think that I don't have to justify. You will hear it, and your ears will justify that. You will tell us maybe at the end of the piece with your applause, if you like it or not. I think that in order to transcribe music that was originally thought to be played in other instruments, you need very good reasons. Otherwise, it's better not to fix what ain't broken. Yeah. So in this occasion, it was fantastic. Yeah.
Tonight's program also features one of your big collaborators, Gabriel Ortiz,
Yes.
with the wonderful piece, Liquid Borders.
Yes. Mhm.
How was the process of learning the piece, and how is Tambuco following through to the composition? She's talking about flexibility, liquidity, and movement. How is that? How are those concepts translate into the performance of the piece?
First of all, the piece has 3 ideas, 3 images of some surreal environments. These 3 movements are called liquid city, then liquid desert, and liquid jungle. So the idea of liquid is about this substance that has no shape. You cannot measure liquids unless you put them in a container. But what you measure is the weight in the container or the volume of the liquid. But this thing, this ethereal thing, such as a liquid thing, when you mix it with other concept, which is a city, a jungle, and a desert, then the piece becomes very surreal, or as I would say, a very magic realism. The idea of the title Liquid Borders is because we live in a place in which our concept of borders is usually a line in the map, a line that says this is where a country finishes and another country starts. But there are many, many sublayers of borders, many other borders in societies, like economical borders that divide people, racial borders that also separate people. So this idea of border as a reason to separate, and sometimes they are very subtle borders, even the accents, the way someone speaks defines a border against those who speak differently, even the same language, but different accents. So is this idea of division, that sometimes is very ethereal, sometimes is very subtle to know where one finishes and the other starts. So that's the idea of borders in general.
And how is that present in the music?
For instance, I think that's the magic is turned into sound. For the first one, Liquid City, Gabriela uses sounds, mostly metal sounds that come from industrialization. So it's full of metal instruments and metal found instruments like tin cans or like bottles that, although is crystal, is product of industrialization. But the rest is a bunch of gongs or gongs, cymbals, glockenspiel, which is also made of metal, and tuned cowbells. The second evokes the landscape of a desert with rather dry sounds, gourds, scrapers, bamboo chimes. So they evoke natural materials like bamboo, gourds, of any kind, rattles and shakers. So that makes it like very, as if the desert could sound. And the second, and the third one is just a melange, it's a collage of many combinations, bringing tuned percussion, four marimbas, playing in a very contrapuntal style. So that's Liquid Borders.
And this piece is about 30 minutes long.
Yes, it takes almost the whole second half of the program.
And how was the process of learning this piece? How was Gabriela involved in the learning process? How was the
not only in the learning, in the composing process all the time. The phone would ring twice, 3 times a day. But what if I do this? Okay, this. And what if I do? So it starts from there. As we say, we know the piece since she was very little, you know. So, and a piece like this is very difficult to program because it's very long. So what we did is that it can be the movements can be played as individual pieces. So in some concerts we program the first movement because it's 10 minutes. It's like a substantial piece, you know. Or in some others, the 3 movements. And actually, we have played very little the whole piece because it's difficult to program a 30-minute piece in the context of a concert. Last time we did it was at Tanglewood, a music festival. Yes, and it was great.
Yeah, I was pretty determined that we should present the entire work here. So I'm glad that we are doing that.
Yes, it's fantastic.
Then as we get closer to the end of the program,
Yes.
you are featuring Alfredo Bringas Barranco.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the context of that piece?
Well, yes, it is mixed with a personal story. You know, at one occasion, Alfredo, my colleague from Tambuco, he visited Peru, and we all love the music of the Pacific Peruvian coast, because it's so rich in percussion, but it's also so rich in dignity when the time that African slaves in Peru, their native instruments were taken away from the Spaniards because they invoke evil spirits, or I don't know what else they feared, but they took the instruments, but they didn't take the music. So they continued creating culture and an art form out of the instruments that they could find, like wooden boxes to transport vegetables, or little boxes, or the jawbone of a donkey played, and to make a fantastic art form, but also to send a message. And this message is that despite everything, culture survives all the time.
I have to stop you right there. Can you please explain to our audience what that instrument is, the jaw of the donkey? Can you explain what that is and where is the sound coming from?
Well, as a jaw, they have this V-shaped structure, and when you grab by the end of the jawbone, and then you strike with your fist by the side, these two loose parts vibrate like a pitchfork, and the teeth that remain, they are loose, but at the same time, they are very attached and they cannot fly away. So when you hit it, it's the vibration and the sound of the teeth vibrating against the bone structure makes it reverberate. So that's the way it sounds. We won't use in this concert the quijada or jawbone because it's very difficult to cross borders without being stopped. Yeah. Don't you know that the donkey is an endangered species? Yeah. I didn't know, but yeah, we don't take chances. Yeah.
What other Peruvian percussion instruments are present in that piece?
Cajon, which literally means a drawer, or a box. And cajita, which means little box. And it's as simple as that, It's this instrument, the cajon, it became a very popular instrument because it's so complete. In just a simple box, you have low frequencies and high frequencies that you can alternate. And when a famous Spanish flamenco guitarist, Paco de Lucia, traveled to Peru, and he met a musician playing cajon, and he invited him to play with him. And that was when flamenco cajon started, because it was so natural, the tapping of the cajon and the tapping of the dancers, that they blend together. And now this instrument is as popular in the south of Spain than in Peru. And from there, it expanded and is a fabulous instrument that is used in many styles of music.
I think we have time for a couple of questions.
Yes.
If you have a question, please raise your hand and you will get a mic.
The process of the ensemble. You mentioned that you get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. Can you think of an example over the years where a weakness emerged and how the ensemble worked to change the weakness or overcome it or modify it so it no longer was a weakness?
Yes. One thing that I find beautiful is the imperfection of humankind. We all have strengths, and we all, absolutely all, have limits. And the best way to overcome these limits is to join together with someone who perhaps has other limitations and other strengths, other talents. And that's a great advantage of playing music together, to put strengths together and to fight weaknesses or limitations together. And also, you can see that in every example of music players. Take, for instance, the Beatles, The talents were very different amongst them, and perhaps when they did things separately, there are some things that you might like, some others not so much. But playing together as a group, as an entity, then reach their own perfection, you know. And I can say the same with famous string quartets. And so my colleagues make me play better, and I want to be better for them. And I want to assist when some rhythms, when some articulations are not as well understood. And then I think that I can contribute. And I said, oh, try this technique or this one. And then, and I think that's one of the best reasons for me to play chamber music, is because it makes me a better, not only a better musician, but also a better human being. And I try to translate that into societies, into my relationship with my friends, with my neighbors, with my prosecutors. No. No.
Next question.
Yeah, I came in late, so I missed some of the introduction, but I wanted to ask you a question about one thing that I really enjoyed seeing in one of the videos that you guys produced, which was you were tapping on the table in different ways and creating new kinds of sounds. Yes. I thought that was incredibly wonderful. And you also had a lot of physical gestures where you're just making sound by tapping on your own body. And I wondered, is that something that you do just every day, like even outside of the concert, because it's an interesting instrument? And have you played around with beatbox, you know, where people are actually using different sounds from the throat to create that kind of rhythm?
Well, I think that is a whole different department, the beatboxing, because it involves a lot the vocals, and it's amazing what many people can do with beatboxing. But we don't touch the beatbox. But about the body, you mentioned two pieces that are essential to our repertoire. One is written by the Belgian composer Thierry de May, and the piece is called Musique de Table, table music. Also making fun of Handel's. He is making fun of Tafelmusik by Handel. And it took us about 6 months to learn the piece. The piece is a score of 11 pages, and the instructions to play that piece is like another 15 pages of very, very punctual indications as to how to move the hands and the gestures, because it's not only a musical piece, it's a choreography. So in the piece, I will show you a little bit with this. I mean, now I know and I learned the piece, but he explains with written instructions how to strike this way, then thumb comes here, the rest of the fingers. Then you turn to do. It's like, and now we can play it almost by heart, but it was 6 months. And I can swear to you, every rehearsal, we couldn't carry on or run through because we would be laughing all the time. Okay, once more, but please don't laugh. Don't laugh until it became serious business. And the other piece was written by our good friend and great composer and great jazz pianist in Mexico, Héctor Infanzón, who's the first piece of the program is a piece that he wrote for us, but for marimba quartet. But the piece I'm talking about, it has also a funny connotation because we play in our bodies. But when he was rehearsing the piece on himself. You know, he got carried out by hitting himself. So at the end, he could notice some black and blue in him. and he there's a fancy word that doctors use for black and blue, which is hematoma. That's right, hematoma. I say that is a more expensive word, you know? So when he was practicing like this, it was like, gee, I think I've just created the symphony of hematomas, you know? And the piece is called hematophony. Yes. So that's the piece.
Last question, please.
Yes. Hi, my name is Aida, and first and foremost, thank you for creating. I have a couple of questions. The first one is I'm curious to know if you have a favorite record. If that might be a hard question. The second one is there, for your band, is there a composer or a certain instrument that you look forward to creating for the next phase? The last one is, as a band traveling, I'm pretty sure that you have full of stories. Is there one that stands out that maybe brought your band even closer? So those are the things I'm curious about.
Well, we would start by saying that, or personally, I don't have a favorite album. Otherwise, I would keep listening to that. And when you do that, it's the same as food. You might love curry, but if you have curry every day because you love it, the next week I would like to ask you, do you like curry? And then you wouldn't be too sure. So I try to expand. Composers, we are always working with composers. Right now, 3 composers are writing new pieces for us. One is composer, an Australian Chilean composer. He was born in Chile, but he's been living in Melbourne for a number of years. And he's writing a piece for us. The other one is José Luis Castillo. He's a composer from Valencia, Spain, but he lives in Mexico, and he's a very accomplished conductor. He is the musical director of Jalisco Symphony. Jalisco is a state in which Guadalajara is the capital city. And we will world premiere his piece on February 6th in Madrid. So that's a brand new piece that is in the oven, just starts smelling good. And we have 2 more pieces. One more by Héctor Infalson, who is finishing a percussion concerto for Tambuco and orchestra. We don't have the premiere date. And the other is Rodrigo Segal, good friend and good composer using electroacoustic media. But that's going to be premiered maybe in 2 years. But we are working in these pieces. And what else did you ask? Anecdotes. I think that we need another post-concert talk. and my friends here, just about so many anecdotes. But maybe there's one that I can think of. There's one piece that we play, and at the end of the piece, all musicians, 4 musicians, we become sort of spirits, and we have to go quickly to the floor, pick up a mask, and then we play and we play some crotals, some metal discs, but with a bow, like a bass bow. And the sound is very magic and ethereal. And this, usually we play that as the last piece of the program. And what we would do is pick up the mask, the bow, the crotal, and start bowing. And then we would jump from the stage and play this sound through the audience and then disappear in the back. So, but of course the mask limits your vision. You can imagine, you know. So once we were in Bari, in Italy, the south of Italy, playing a concert, and we didn't realize that the stage was very high, very high. And we forgot that, you know, we played the concert. And at the end of the concert, we wore the mask, the crotals, the bow, and then we go and we jump. And we all remember like being suspended and like, when am I going to touch the ground again? Because it was very high. So by the time we touched, it was like, oh! But luckily we didn't
Hurt yourself.
yes, fall or anything. No accidents, but ouch, my feet. And we were like limping to go. So that's one of many things.
And on that funny note, I want to thank, so please give him a round of applause.